Second work session. And for those listening, we're potentially taking a break when?
Probably around noon or noon or 1:15, yeah, right. Noon, 12:15, maybe, something in there.
Okay, so we're going to go for, let's say we'll go till 12:15. And then somebody needs to make a motion. Okay.
Okay, so we have an end today of 3:30, which means between now and then, we have to get fiscal year '25 to a balanced budget. I don't know how worried to be, not having any idea how this conversation's going to go, but I know when the end is. And also for people listening, yeah, it's people following these discussions. I've heard and read complaints about various things the board has acted on. I just want to remind people that, whatever you think about the past, how we got to where we are today, this board right now has to balance the budget that we've got. And there's no easy way to do it. There's no magic solution. Any choices will certainly make somebody unhappy, maybe angry. But there's no other path. That's the only way it can work. So just remember, it's easy to sit on the sidelines and criticize one decision. It's a lot harder to be sitting here trying to make the whole set of decisions that need to be made. So you have, again, your update from the last time. One thing I need to mention to you, and this is really bad timing, but building construction has reevaluated the cost of the sheriff's headquarters. They believe they're going to need about $9 million more than is currently budgeted, which is 30-point-something million dollars. I would have much rather have had you get a update and briefing on what's changed and why, but we don't have the time to deal with it. If this project is going to move ahead, it needs to get into the budget. Toward that end, can you pull up this thing?
Yep.
We considered two funding scenarios. Of course, there are unlimited number of possibilities. But if we got it? Okay.
Yep.
If we say bond the whole thing, you can see what we think the debt service that would be added to the bottom line would be. And 31 does not go up further, does it?
No, it does not.
Okay. So under current estimates, that 900,000 would be the peak of the debt service. And then below that, you see if we used fund balance to pay half of it and bonded half of it, what your debt service impact would be. And then, again, those are two choices, but, you could put $2 million of cash, $6 million of cash, and then, we would adjust the debt service accordingly. And then, why don't you give those to them?
Yep.
And also Heidi is about to hand out something. There was a request for what would the op plan look like with some various tax scenarios laid out. So she's given you 3 different ones. So we wanted you to have hard copies of this.
What
So
you emailed? I printed it.
so you can see
Thank you.
all 3 bottom lines at the same time.
Thank you.
So, and at this point, that's it. We just wanted that in your hands if the discussion goes there.
So the sheriff's headquarters, you already put money in the capital project, or not yet? You're waiting to see how it's funded?
Right, we have not. We need to, but we wanted to talk with you about the
And
funding mix
How
first.
much?
It's about 9 million.
About 9. And we can put it in the budget, which doesn't mean we're spending it, and we still can value engineer and look at more info and,
Conceptually, yes. I don't want to get ahead of building construction and say what they have or haven't done, though.
yeah, then I'll be honest, if we have no things afterwards, I say don't put it in, period. The timing's not my fault. But if they can't value engineer a project and talk to stuff about us afterwards, then I say,
Well, I'm not saying they can't. I'm just saying I can't answer for them.
but I'm saying that's the only way we'll put the money in is if they can. I don't know of any project in the history of the United States that was a value engineer. So I would hope they could do it, but I'm not ready to sit here and say, yeah, we'll spend 9 more million on this project. Now, I say put it in the budget, but we need to know why and how and.
Yes. The intent is for them to come before you in the next several weeks to talk about
Yes.
where the project is and things. But because of the timing,
Yes, yeah, no, like I say, I'm fine with
It's a
putting it
little
in
back-assed.
with that and I understand, you don't know where they're at with the project, but, you know, it's,
Yeah. Yeah, my expectation is that they're gonna come in front of us and say, why? But with that said, you know, it's capital, we're gonna take it from, the fund balance, which is at 24 right now. So if we were to take all 9, that would bring it down to 15. If we're taking half of it, that would take it down to 19 something, that fund balance. And with additional debt service starting in FY '27. Yeah, I mean, I think that needs to occur, but you're absolutely right. You're not gonna, you know, I mean, that needs to happen. This is, again, it's one time. It's not gonna affect any of these scenarios, except for the more we take out of fund balance, the more risk is associated with taking fund balance and plastering it on the bottom line of operational. That's kind of the impact, I think, right?
Can I interrupt once? I'm just going to do something really weird. I'm noticing these boards, and this one's making me nervous. You're wrapping your foot around it. So I'm just going to move it away. Sorry. Okay, back to your regular schedule.
and it doesn't shock me, the budget for this was probably 3 years ago. So it might not be surprising. It could be very valid reasons, the way construction costs have increased, why it's up. But I guess, Ted, my question for you would be, what do you think of taking 1/3 of the fund balance and using it for this? What's the risk? What's the downside?
Okay, well, more flexibility is always good than less flexibility. Some of this depends on what other decisions you make. I'm not trying to jump ahead to where we're going to go, but if we're going to take $10 million to balance 25, and you take 9 million for this, now that 22 is 3 million or whatever.
It's 24 is fine.
So we, are left with very little flexibility. So if we're going to use fund balance to balance the budget, it's a bigger worry for me than if we're not. And on this idea of what decisions the board can still make, just want to make sure we're all together on this. For this project to move ahead in '25, we need to get it budgeted. Budgeting it allows it to move ahead, but doesn't require it to move ahead. The board can still pull the plug
Yep.
Right.
tomorrow or next month, and, well, really any time until we accept a bid to do the construction.
Now, out of curiosity, I mean, if we went ahead and put a placeholder in this for the budget, is this something that we could appeal to our delegation to try to secure state funding for? Or is this something that is beyond the scope of trying to secure state funding for?
I'm not saying it's impossible, but I don't think there's any reason for us to build an expectation into our plans.
There is actually already, I think it's $4 million of state funding on this.
Correct. She's correct. So, yeah, never a good time to find out something's gonna cost more than 9 million, whether it's during budget process or not. I'm trying to recall the money we set aside for the parking garage. And if we needed to make a decision, if we needed to move some money around, it would seem to me that the sheriff's headquarters is much more important than the parking garage at this point, although I understand they're both tied together. So what's the status of that funding again?
There's 18 million, was that all fund balance?
It's
Yeah,
part
it's
of,
half bonds, half
Okay.
cash.
So 9 million cash, 9 million bonds. And yes, we can move that appropriation. What that means, again, depends on where we want to be going. If we're not going to do a garage, then that's easy. If we are going to do a garage, then that just means we're moving a decision on where this money going to come from today to some other time. And we have another problem with the garage, and that 18 million is a very arbitrary number. We had some casual discussion about what garage do we want, but we have not determined what we're really looking for. And depending on the answer to that, the 18 million could be too much or too little.
What years is that 18 in? If I remember, I thought it was
This
split.
year,
Last
24.
Yeah,
It's-
FY '24.
So when?
FY '24.
It's in the current year, 24,
The current year, not 25.
right.
Yeah.
Right. So that's already existing, so we can, if that's the path we take, we can just move money out of here and into the other.
My recommendation is to do the 50/50.
And do that as a placeholder for the,
Well, yeah, I mean, you can call it a placeholder, but to recognize it into the budget, for FY '25, again, it's using the fund balance. So it's not gonna affect any of this, except for the ability to use additional fund balance to mask a problem that we know we have.
Yeah, just want to make sure we're clear, this is not about a placeholder. This will be
Right, right.
authorized budget
Yeah,
in which you're going to adopt.
and that's what I was trying to say, yeah, these aren't placeholders now. I mean, we gotta make a decision, so.
But if we do put the money in and we say 50/50, that decision, the 50/50 part could change based on where the fund balance is and none of that, the first time that hits is 27, right?
And even that is uncertain, just
Yes,
depends on
yes.
when we start spending
Right.
money.
Yeah, yeah.
But to your original question, yes, that could be revisited. And if it remains if we do it 50/50 and it remains a question, you know, and we would do this anyway. We'd say, spend the cash first, and then in the next budget,
Yep.
you could say, well, let's take off $2 million of debt
Right.
and put in $2 million of
Right.
cash.
Yeah, the more we use cash that's available to us, I think the better we are. But the more we use cash, the less cash is available for other things. And, you
I
know,
think the 50/50 is a good way to
yeah,
do it.
and I understand what both of you are saying, and I guess, I think probably both of you also hinted at it. It doesn't make me entirely comfortable because we don't have more information about it. And I get it, that this is a last-minute thing, and this is, it's got to be done. But I just, again, I'm apprehensive about it because, again, we don't know a lot.
Okay, but
And it's-
more information will come to you. You will still have time
Right.
to decide differently. The biggest thing is now, if this doesn't go into the budget, then you're saying this project cannot move ahead in '25. If you put it into the budget, it doesn't mean it will, it just means it can.
And I think they have a construction manager now. They're further along, so unfortunately, I think it's probably pretty realistic that it's gonna cost more, or they wouldn't be doing this.
Yeah.
But I think we need to hear the why, and
yeah.
talk
And I,
about that.
yeah, I agree,
I
I
think
think
the
we will.
50/50 is a good way to fund it for now.
Mhm.
So,
So-
do we need a motion?
So that's my motion, to move that,
Your motion is to put the,
as described there, 50/50, using debt service and fund balance.
and put the money into the capital budget.
Yes,
We need to do both.
yes. I apologize, yes.
Second?
I'll second it.
Discussion?
Yeah, again, I mean, having just heard about this, I know we're much more clear about the fact that the Sheriff's Department needs a headquarters. They don't really have one right now anyway, right? So, I mean, they need that money, but I think I remember the discussions, the five of us were much less clear about the parking garage and exactly how it was gonna fit into everything. So why not just take, if we can, why not just take the 4.5 out of that money instead of out of our fund balance? Could we do that? And why wouldn't we?
You can. One reason why we wouldn't is if there's not a parking garage project, then they will begin designing a project that includes parking without parking garage.
But the money would still be there. There's still money in the parking garage project. Even if you take 4.5 million, there's still 13.5 million in there. I just know what, one we're certain about, the other one we're not. So why wouldn't we go with what we know we need?
I understand what you're saying.
That's my argument to my fellow commissioner.
Yeah, I think we have no choice but to do the parking garage.
I'm not saying we don't.
Yeah.
It seemed like that is much,
Oh, understand.
I'm not saying it's even in doubt. It's not in doubt. I just, the parameters of it and how everything's gonna look, we're not certain, but we do know that they need the headquarters, so why not just go with what you know you need? But
I mean, I certainly,
okay, so I know there's a
Yes.
second.
I will certainly say that, you know, I very much expect detailed information about this as soon as humanly possible, because that's the only way that I'm going to agree to this, is that we have, you know, good information very, very soon.
Okay, you kind of, I know it's uncomfortable, but if we're going to do it, you have to agree before you get the other information.
Yes.
But keep in mind, that's not the end of the story.
That's why I'm saying it's going to be contingent on
Yeah, I
what we're
mean, and you seconded the motion,
Right.
so it's not
Yeah.
as though you're questioning.
Well, he said as soon as humanly possible. That's what I was
Yep.
concerned about.
Yeah, we can still say no to the whole project.
Yes.
So they have to give us the information.
We just don't like, just not crazy about the fund balance piece. So, yeah.
The only concern, just, Ted said this, I just want to amplify it, is if you went down the parking garage path, that would starve that project, and that wouldn't be able to be built or go forward. It may need more money than the 18 million, but I don't think anybody believes it needs less. So then that project would be basically dead in the water. That's the only concern with that.
Sure, no, I understand. I mean, again,
Yep.
we're working on the fly here,
Just wanting to make sure that.
so
Right.
I know we need the 9 million, I just think there's a slight disagreement as to where it's
So-
supposed to come from.
So do we want to vote on the motion?
I think you have a second.
Yeah, I
Yeah, he
second it.
seconded, yeah. Any more discussion, questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
So that was 4-1.
It's in the capital and it's 50/50.
So will you adjust that
Yep, she's
balance?
working on it. So yes, that reduces your unassigned fund balance and adds to your expenditures on your bottom line. Not a huge change on the operating plan, but it does make a change.
From 27 on.
Yeah.
I think it's the fastest $9 million we've ever spent.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah,
It's not
but it's
hard
in
to
the
do that,
capital
though.
and it's using half using fund balance.
It's not, doesn't take, it's not hard to do that anymore, unfortunately.
all right.
I would like to revisit a couple things. The community college agency request, and I don't even know where I have it, but,
After Heidi gets this in, she can bring that back up again.
Community college?
yes. Yeah, the agency request, and, which one is the Miller stuff?
That's
That's
the
it.
entrepreneurship funding.
Right.
They brought up how important this was to them. We essentially fund, and this is a question, we essentially fund the people and they fund everything else, correct?
One person.
We
One
fund
person.
the individual. We fund
fund
the
the
instructor.
individual.
Correct.
And, the talk was that there's been companies come to them that end up getting financing, getting a start, getting whatever because of this, and I said I would bring it up again.
Mhm.
So I don't know if there's any interest from anybody else.
I always have interest in this one.
Say again?
I always have interest in this one. It's a difficult one. I support their entrepreneur program. I support their Miller Center. I didn't care for how it was manned at some times, prior to me being on the board. So they came up with a solution in getting the gentleman that's in place now, and he has had success. Some of the challenges over the years have been the communications on how they are succeeding and how they're tied into the SBDC, which is the Small Business Administration's, outreach in our county, how they're tied into the Chamber of Commerce, how they are tied into workforce development, and how they are tied into us and economic development. And I've been asking for that for years, to show us and share with us that. It doesn't mean that that's not happening, but it's very difficult to objectively talk about it if you don't get the metrics. I also, just like the public schools, if the public schools tell me that this is a requirement, I'm not the one to doubt that it's a requirement. They're the experts. So if the community college is saying that this is a requirement that must be filled to succeed for our county, I'm not going to judge that. But how much, so with that piece of information, because I've been kind of living this one for a while, how much have we put into SBDC in addition to what we have right now? Do you remember, Tom?
I do not. Ted, you know what that,
Because didn't we add something?
17,000.
How much?
17,000.
It wasn't 120?
no.
Oh, okay.
It got it from one number to around like 80,000 or
Fine.
something like that.
But, and we've talked about this before,
Yeah,
so maybe based on what you're just saying, put one-time money in it for this year, don't continue it, and say, we need to talk hard about this. I think,
it would be acting like it's a grant. It would be acting like it's a grant to the individual if we did one-time funds.
yeah, but say, we need these other questions answered, to decide if we're doing anything going forward, and that also gives them a year to plan, if we want to do it and the county's not going to support it, how do we do it?
I would agree to that, but I think we should give it more than a year because there's a lot of moving pieces in this. And we have a new economic developer. We have a new president of the community college. We have a stronger commitment with SBDC. So if we use one-time funds through '26, then I can agree with that. And that'll give them a way to navigate moving forward after that. So, what do you think, Tom?
Well, I don't think anybody's questioning the program. I think my first concern is we've talked about not just this Miller and SBDC, but we've talked about a number of organizations we work with where there is, whatever you want to call it, overlap, things like that. I think sometimes it's good, and I think sometimes it's a little challenging. I agree with your points about how they interact with the various entities from the chamber and so forth. I think that makes sense. What does concern me, and I'm kind of having a hard time getting past two big things here. One, we've all talked about not using one-time funding, and here we are again. We're at over 10 million, and we're throwing more money back on the pile, but yet we got to get to zero today, and we only got a couple hours. The other concern I have, which I've asked for additional information a few months ago, they did supply it to us, but it doesn't really give us the metrics, which is a lot of questions, no answers. I don't expect them to be able to answer that on the fly, but that being said, it doesn't feel like the answers we received really is going to change anything, whether it be 12 or 24 months down the road, as to how they're collecting that data and what they're willing to give us. Some of their numbers were interesting to me, and I'm not judging their numbers, but when you broke it down over a calendar year, I don't know how you can interact with that many.
It's inflated, I know.
And then the other question is this: what do we define a business as? I've asked this to them multiple times, and I'm not being judgmental to them, the program, or any of the parties involved. However, you know, I can own a business and do $10,000 a year. Is that considered success and economically affecting the Carroll County landscape? I don't think it does. To me, it's challenging. I wish there was a better way we could come up with more of a hybrid between those two groups. I mean, I almost think that, you know, is there an angle there? I mean, I know the question was raised a few weeks, or maybe it was a month or so ago, regarding startups and entrepreneurship, and I know Miller does that, but so does SBDC. So there's a lot of, there are connections there where there's a lot of crossover. I don't know if there's an angle to try to pull those two together in a better manner. I don't know.
I think there is, and you're hitting it. I think there is. I think there's a way. And the SBDC used to lease property on Main Street,
Yes.
and that was very frustrating because they were invisible. So I pushed hard a few years back and worked with Jack and the team to have the SBDC not lease that property and put them downstairs, or I guess from here, upstairs, in the office. I also worked with Yingling, what's her first name? Amy?
Amy.
Amy. Worked with Amy on getting more hands-on, because she's got Harford County, as you know, as well. And I feel like we're moving in the right direction, and Darren's doing a great job. But I think getting him more engaged with the Miller Center and the entrepreneurship program is critical. And they're not there yet. But I think if we give them a grant approach, and say, listen, this is it, you know, we are done after this, then it'll give them an opportunity. I don't think we've hit them hard enough with that.
And I don't disagree with you in that thought process. And correct me if I'm wrong, I know they were on Main Street on the corner there where the city was also in that building at the time. I think, was Miller not in that building as well, I think?
I don't think so. I think they were in the community college.
They're at the community, okay. I guess my thought would be this: we've kind of looked at some other things in this budget, whether it be the library or so forth, which that was for a year. I think give them 12 months instead of 24, and just, you know, they know what they have at that point. It's not, they're not being, for lack of a nice way of putting it, blindsided completely. I think, you know, we've had conversations earlier in the year. The college was in presenting. It's not like there hasn't been some dialogue back and forth. I think we give them 12 months. I would be okay with that, with some reservation, but I would be okay with that. But to me, I think if we can't get some real answers and some real data in 12 months, I think that we really have to take a hard look.
Okay.
And I tend to agree with that.
I agree.
We've asked questions, but we've never said, this is over.
Yeah,
I think if we say, you got money for one more year and we need to talk, and
yeah,
then we can always add it back in, we can always take it out forever.
Right.
But I think that promotes the,
yeah,
he seems to make people talk,
yeah,
or lack of.
yeah.
So-
No, I
so-
agree.
so-
Let's do 12 months for the entrepreneurship program. That'll be my motion. And
With one-time money.
with one-time money. And I'd like to know, besides that and the library, what other one-time money have we put, and the sheriff's department? Have we used one-time money for other,
For this process, the animal control items,
animal control? Yeah,
both of those, so 275,000.
yeah, and we kind of walked into that before we even started, knowing that that's where that was going to come from. So we really haven't used a lot of one-time funds from, from our fund balance. So, yeah, because I agree. I don't want to use one-time funds. I want to make that as small as possible, but if we can come up with a solution here. Okay, that was good. Thanks, Heidi. And that's my motion, to use one-time funds to restore the entrepreneurship funding for FY '25.
And fiscal year '26 and forward, 0.
And fiscal year '26 and forward is 0 at this point. Correct.
That's a motion?
That's a motion.
Second?
Oh, go ahead.
Did you
Second.
second?
I didn't say anything else.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So just quick, so again, just so I'm clear, that this restores funding for a person
Yeah.
or the program? Okay.
person.
And, you know, one, sort of rhetorical question, I guess, but we're providing them with 857,000 in salary increases for FY '25. If they wanted to, could they use that money in there to fund this particular position? Do they have that type of leeway? Do we provide them? with that?
I think they look at this as separate from their basic operation, but I'm not aware there's any reason why they couldn't fund it.
Yeah. You say, in theory, they can, once we give them their money, they can do anything they want. But, yeah, so, but, yeah, I think,
And I don't think the 120 covers the whole position. To be
what they
honest.
told me is that pays for the person.
You know, no, I agree it pays for a person, but 120,000 by itself shouldn't pay for an individual because they have, you know, benefits and all that kind of stuff, unless it's a 1099 and they're just saying, here it is. But I don't know.
Yep.
I would
I mean,
think,
that's-
I would think that the community colleges matches it somehow with benefits, but
Yeah,
again,
I-
that's their business, not ours.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, I don't, is the Miller family still involved? And I think they have
I
some
don't
state
know.
money for this, I'm not sure.
Well, I know they have foundation money that adds on to this, and I would expect they use something else
Yeah,
to add on to this to make it,
maybe.
but again, that's their business, not
Yep.
ours. So, yeah, so that motion still stands. One-time money for FY '25, coming out of the fund balance, and nothing for '26 forward.
Any more discussion? All those in favor?
I apologize.
Oh.
That was a motion. Was there a second?
Oh,
Not yet, no.
I thought you did.
I have not, no.
Okay.
And then we're going to ask them for some additional information and
Oh,
conversation.
absolutely.
Okay, I'll second that.
Okay. Motion and a second, and yeah, it's, they need to talk, and I think they will. Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
It's almost 12:10. I don't know if you think you can get something more done before you want to recess.
Well,
When we get
let-
back,
Let me mention, and this didn't change the bottom line. But what I was gonna mention during this afternoon section, we got a letter from Carroll County Arts Council last night, and I wanted to talk about that again. And then, did we want to put any one-time money into Ag Pres? And I think we kind of beat that up and said no, right?
Well, in the In the interest of trying to knock some stuff out before we break, okay, I'll comment on the Arts Council. I'm totally comfortable with what we did, taking that down from 43,000 to 13,000. And let's remember, we took that 30,000 and we gave it to Rec and Parks for self-help.
Yeah.
I'm completely comfortable with that. We are trying to provide a service on one hand. We do not run the Arts Council. I understand they do provide a service to the quote-unquote community, but I think our allegiance is certainly more towards the Rec and Parks if we had to make a choice like that. So I'm fine with what we did, and I would hope we wouldn't change, but I guess it's open for discussion.
Yeah, and typically the self-helps get used every year. I don't know how much more money would get used every year. And you had mentioned self-helps for kids. A lot of it is materials but it all leads to kids, but so does Carroll County Arts Council. So, yeah, I was mixed about it that day, and then we got the letter and the email, and I
Yeah.
just thought I'd bring it up.
I mean, I wish we weren't in that position of having to make these kind of choices. And I understand the self-help funds, I mean, in theory, it's one-time funding. You know, I mean, I understand they're gonna buy things that, it's a one-time funding, but it does require maintenance and things of that nature. So I wasn't sure if you were alluding to that, the fact that it's still only one-time funds, but I
I've
know they need help.
I've probably done 15 or 20 self-helps.
Yeah, you've got way more experience with it than I do.
Yeah, but, and like I say, it's not like they don't use the money most years, so more money.
And I agree with Commissioner Guerin. I mean, it's not that I disdain or unsympathetic toward the Arts Council. I know they do a lot, but I also know that the self-help program, is closer to us as, overall part of us. So.
Yeah. Yes. Okay. So you answered Ag Pres and you answered Carroll Arts. So, do you want to talk any more topics, or we want to take a break? What do we want to do?
I guess before we break, are we going to, did we get any feedback from these vacant positions with particular departments? Did we
Yes.
ever- We did? Okay, so we'll be able to chat about that a little bit when we come back. Okay, great.
Did we have any other topics other than how to balance the budget?
Other than that,
Any more thoughts of cuts or add? No, what I'm saying is we ought to do all the cuts and all the ads, and then we need to figure
Yeah,
out something.
I certainly need more time, but when we come back, there's a possible path forward that I want to lay out, but I need more than just a couple minutes.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so, we think vacant positions is the last topic of individual budgets. And then we can look at plans to balance a budget, correct?
I think so.
Sounds good. So does somebody make another motion to adjourn again?
Motion to recess until 1 o'clock.
Second.
Favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.